Late Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor posited that a government's endorsement of religion sends a message to adherents that they are outsiders, not full members of the political community. Likewise, political philosopher Samuel Freeman believes state endorsement of religion dilutes non-believers' equal rights and their claims to political equality. But was it not Jesus who said that we should love thy neighbor? And when it comes to the Constitution, we can see it, we can touch it, we can read it. We can essentially prove that we are all guaranteed something from it. But when it comes to God, well, the jury's still out on that. And why is it that the very same people who claim to be pro-America and are morally superior because of their faith are so anti-equality? Would they rather have a country that supports their faith and not the Constitution? Because we can't have both. Why lend more credence to something that you can't prove instead of prioritizing something that you can, which, unlike religion, actually makes people's lives better? Do you think your religion is superior to equal rights and equal justice? If so, please give us a call because the show is starting right now. Hey, hello, and welcome to another episode of Truth Wanted. I'm your host, Kelley Laughlin. This is a live call-in show that happens every single Friday at 7 p.m. Central, and we want to talk to people about what they believe and why they believe it. And if you'd like to call us, we certainly want to talk to you, and you can call us at 1-512-991-9242, or you can call us through your computer at tiny.cc/TW. Truth Wanted is a product of the atheist community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And my very special guest tonight, I'm so happy to be here with him, is the Cross Examiner. Hi, Cross Examiner. How are you?
Hey, Kelley, I'm doing really great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, I'm really excited to be here with you. It wasn't me that had you. It wasn't me that had you on. Believe me, it was people higher on the rung than I am. So, but I'm really happy to be here with you tonight.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Before we get started, though, I want to give the results of last week's We Want the Truth, or the WWTT segment, as we call it in the back room. So last week we asked you, what are Dan and Jimmy thinking so hard about? Wrong answers only, and here are some of our favorite answers. Number 3 from Miranda Rensberger. Danny and Jimmy Jr. are thinking hard about the risk they might go to hell if they're wrong about Quetzalcoatl not existing. I'm pretty sure that Quetzalcoatl does exist somewhere.
Then you're safe.
Some deep dark cave in the Yucatan. So. The RZA show? I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but what are Dan and Jimmy Jr. thinking about? That peach? Is that a peach? That peach.
That means something. In the end, it means something, so to speak, as in a posterior.
Yeah. Number 1, Blake Walker. What are Dan and Jimmy Jr. thinking so hard about? Some statue by Rodin.
Yeah, I wonder what Rodin's thinking about.
And the prompt for next week is, what was the real purpose of Stonehenge? Cross Examiner, what do you think the real purpose of Stonehenge was?
Well, I've been thinking about this because somebody let me know what the question was, and I think it was one of the first big calendar device. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. It's the first device from Big Calendar. They invented a new year, and now Hallmark gets rich selling new calendars every year. Is that a coincidence? And then they teach our kids that a year is how long it takes the Earth to orbit the sun. That's obviously impossible because, as the Bible says, the Earth is flat and the center of the universe. So while I would say it's time to wake up, sheeple, I can't because time is a big calendar lie. So I think it's a conspiracy theory to sell more calendars.
It brought to you by Big Calendar.
Yes.
Right. That was pretty good. That was pretty
Thanks.
good. You've been on quite a few shows lately, haven't you? Here at the ACA.
Here or there, yeah. For some reason, they keep asking me back, despite my performance. So I keep saying yes, and wondering how long it'll last. The imposter syndrome runs deep.
Yeah, I get it. Believe me, I don't know why they kept having me back. I really didn't. I'm still not sure. So, you do a lot of other stuff though besides the ACA, don't you?
Yeah, well, I started a podcast last spring called The Cross Examiner on thecrossexaminer.net is where you can find me. For the last several months, I've been on hiatus because I still have a full-time job. My eldest son has been looking for colleges, and we've been visiting those, all sorts of real life stuff. But I have some episodes in the can that I'll be releasing shortly. The next one, the premiere of season 2, so to speak, will be about homeopathy. I've got a lot of research there. In fact, there was just a story, I think it was yesterday, I believe it was in Florida, where a nurse, a homeopathic practitioner nurse, had been exposed as having given kids, something like 12,000 kids, if I'm remembering the number correctly, homeopathic pills instead of vaccines, and then falsifying vaccination information during the pandemic. So it's still a real threat to people's health and safety. We don't know yet how many of those kids got sick and may have infected other people.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And wow. I because I work with all the crystals and stuff, I get people with the whole crystal healing thing all the time. And and when people always ask me, well, why do you care? It's not hurting you. And it's like, because I care about things just like this. It's exactly what I care about. When kids are being hurt because people think some kind of pseudo medicine or pseudoscience is going to protect them, it really pisses me off. I mean, to be blunt about it, it really does. And it was one of the things that really caused me to start being active again about speaking out. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I am an attorney in my practice. I'm not practicing anymore currently, so I'm a recovering attorney, I guess is what you'd call me. But my practice was in FDA regulatory law, and that's where I first sort of dug into, wait a second, how are homeopathic drugs still legal to market in the United States? And it turns out, as in most of these cases, that the initial act that created the FDA mentions, and to this day it's in there, homeopathic drugs. The person who drafted the bill was a senator who was a what? Homeopathic practitioner. So they mentioned homeopathy in there. It's still treated as a drug and should be regulated as a drug, but it's just never been a priority by the FDA. They recognize the main threat, which is safety of ingredients, contamination issues. You know, a lot of these drugs will come from overseas where we can't monitor their manufacturing processes as well, and they're worried about contamination. They just issued new guidance last year about how they're changing their focus towards risk and safety of contamination. But the other part that they don't prioritize as much is the opportunity cost of people using a homeopathic remedy instead of a legit, proven effective remedy, and that can harm people and in some cases kill people. So there's still a lot to go. It's not a priority for anybody in politics to go and fix, because the only people who will get worked up about it typically are the practitioners. So no politician is going to introduce a let's ban homeopathy bill.
I think maybe I'm wrong, but do you think that's because basically what I was talking about before, it's not hurting you. What do you care about it? You know, nobody's being actually hurt by it. Do you think that attitude has made it so that we're not seeing anything happening on a political level?
I think that's a big part of it. Part of this episode I've already recorded is I went to the 5 closest pharmacies to me and looked at the shelves, and took my video camera and recorded all the homeopathic solutions that are out there. So it's so embedded in our subconscious that I think people who are aware of it think, it's this harmless little thing, this goofy thing that people do, whatever, it's just a waste of money. And they don't really think any more about it. So if a senator or a local politician even tried to introduce a bill to regulate homeopathy further or ban the marketing of it, The only people that would get really worked up would be the people who stand to make money off of selling homeopathic remedies, and they have a lot of resources to pit a campaign against somebody. And since there's nobody out there that's really pushing to say, hey, this stuff is harmful in multiple ways, why don't we just not allow it? Because it's provably false claims that they're making on their labeling. There's not a lot of uproar about that. People are worried about where their next meal is going to come from. They're worried about, who's going to be the next president. It's just going to get lost in the noise. So it's going to be status quo for a while. That's why I like doing shows like this, Truth Wanted, that talks about these sorts of things, because at its core, homeopathy is a conspiracy theory, right? Everything where you have to believe that science is lying to you, medicine's lying to you, somebody's lying to you, it turns into this conspiracy theory, because now everybody that touches pharmaceuticals or experimental data has to be in on it in order for homeopathy to be so repressed, even though it's not. You can market it anywhere right now.
Well, and that's a pretty common attitude anyway, and that's why we have all these alternative medicines, is because
Correct.
There is that widespread idea that it's all a big conspiracy to keep people sick but not cured, right?
Correct. And my response to that is always to pull up the financials of giant companies that market this stuff. They're making millions, if not billions of dollars as well. And people never tend to think about that, like big homeopathy or big crystal in your particular world.
Big herbal remedies.
Big herbal, right?
Right, because that's a huge industry too.
Yeah, exactly. And so the fact that people make money off of a thing is not in and of itself evidence of a conspiracy. So, and you mentioned other other alternative medicines. You've got acupuncture, you've got psychic healing, you've got prayer. I've done an episode on faith healing. In fact, I've done a series of episodes on faith healing. That was my biggest passion because of the way it kills kids. That's documented. That's just happens all the time and has since the beginning of religion, and it's ongoing. So my working thesis that I'm working towards across all of these episodes is a notice that, hey, if we add in all these little things, that we allow homeopathy to be marketed unchallenged, right? These claims on their boxes. I went and found children's cough syrup in a pharmacy, in a Target pharmacy run by CVS, children's cough syrup, making claims about helping kids reduce their cough. And it's homeopathy, So it does nothing. And it's sitting right next to other remedies that might help. Now, cough syrup in and of itself has never been really that effective. But the fact that they're targeting kids with homeopathic remedies should give people pause. But that's marketed. We've got prayer being marketed. We've got crystals. We've got, back in the day, transcendental meditation. We've got acupuncture. We've got psychics. It all adds this air in the zeitgeist of the world that, well, maybe there is a little bit of magic out there, and people are just a little bit more willing to either let it be or to accept some claims. And I'm not trying to take the joy out of the world, but we can't let this stuff keep getting marketed and to potentially harm people. People die from acupuncture. People die from homeopathy. Usually it's because of poor hygiene. Infections from needles or mold in the product that you're buying because it's not regulated well enough. So all in all, if they cleaned that up, it would be a little less harmful, but it still creates this mentality that magic is real. And that lends to, oh, well, maybe my pastor's telling the truth. And, oh, well, maybe I should go and storm the Capitol on January 6th. It's all part of the same. I'm willing to believe things based on insufficient evidence.
Right. Right. And a lot of it is I'm willing to believe things because I want to believe those things. Right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
I to kick myself in the butt. I was one of those people once. I had convinced myself that there was power in these shells behind me. So, and it was because I wanted to believe it. It was something that I found attractive, and I was also suffering from some medical problems that weren't getting fixed by the normal procedures through medicine. And hey, you just spend $10, it's worth a try, maybe it'll work. And then you maybe get a little placebo effect out of it, so you think it does work, so you start spending more and more money, and Then you start thinking that other things are good for you. Homeopathy. Let's go get cupped. You ever see cupping? I'm
Oh,
sure you
yeah,
see
yeah.
cupping too.
Olympic swimmers do that.
Yeah,
Like,
it's crazy. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. And there are aromatherapy is another one. And there are some things that I know that some aromas do help people relax. You mentioned TM. It's another thing that kind of helps. We know it kind of does help reduce some stress.
correct.
So, but when you start making fantastical claims about it, how it can cure all these different things, you've got to be really careful. So,
Yeah, and it exists on a spectrum from honest claims, like sincerely held beliefs and actually backed up by some evidence, like, hey, meditation in any form is helpful. We're seeing that. And then it goes to the other end of the spectrum of cult behavior, like transcendental meditation killed Doug Henning. I don't know if I'm dating myself here, but Doug Henning was an amazing magician back in the 70s, very famous, appeared on the Muppet Show and every show that you can imagine. But
and his own TV specials.
he had his own TV special, and he was friends with Amazing Randy. If people know Amazing Randy, he adored him. And the story that made me do the homeopathy episode was I found out a story where a letter from Doug Henning to Amazing Randy was stolen from Amazing Randy and ended up on eBay, and fans notified Randy, and he eventually got the letter back. But while it was up, people saw what it was, and it was a response to Randy, who had gone and seen Doug Henning on Broadway and his flop of a show. He had a flop, and Randy was cheering him up. Hey, I can't believe this young kid I met up in Canada all these years ago had this. I was spellbound by your show and all that. And Doug Henning wrote back and said, "Thank you so much. You're cheering me up. You should know I'm having a lot of medical conditions, and the people in the movement, i.e. transcendental meditation, are telling me to disconnect from all non-TM people." And he stopped talking to Randy. He stopped talking to everybody else and didn't take medical treatment, and he died. That's what this is. It starts out as transcendental meditation. It makes me feel good. And now all of a sudden you're in a cult because they're cutting you off from your friends and family, telling you not to get medical care, and then you die. Same thing with Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs has a treatable form of cancer, declines regular medical treatment, goes and eats vegetables and dies. So it can happen to intelligent, famous, smart people that are used to making important decisions, just like it can happen to, Jane and John Doe.
We had horoscopes in the White House during the Reagan administration.
Yes,
so,
we
yeah,
did.
It can go all the way to the very top. So.
Yes, it can. And hey, the King of England is an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
You go. Well, let me take a look here. It says we should probably take a call at some point, I think. Before we do, I want to shout out to our patron of the week. Every single week, we get to shout out a patron that donates through tiny.cc/Patreon TW for supporting the show. And this week's patron of the week is Ayame. Thank you, Ayame. And thank you to everyone else who contributes to the show. We really appreciate it. It keeps the show going. And
thank you very much. I want to echo that as well. I have recently been participating in ACA stuff, and when I see what goes on behind the scenes to get a show on the air, it's impressive, and it's all volunteer, but they rely a lot on technology, organizational tools, all of those sorts of things, and those aren't free.
Right. They certainly aren't. The guys who run it, they're all volunteers, though, so they are free. And they really are the real heroes here, the real artists that do things. I just show up and talk, and anybody can do that pretty much.
Yep.
So. And speaking of talking, let's get to our first call. We have Joey from Ireland. Joey, he him. And he says that engaging with theists and this wants to talk about engaging with theists and the side effects. Is it beneficial to have the conversation, or is it just a waste of time? Hi, Joey. How are you?
Hi, it's Jerry, Jerry.
Oh, I'm sorry. The call screener put it up here wrong. Okay, no, I'm sorry about that, Jerry.
It's probably my Irish accent. Can you understand me?
Yeah, I can totally. My name's Kelley. I can understand an Irish accent.
Oh, hi,
I've been
Kelley,
around him
and
most.
your
I've been around. I
co-host
was around him most of my early life, so that's not a problem with me.
Okay, and your co-host name is?
Yeah.
I'm the cross examiner. My first name's Graham. So part of my family comes from England and
Hi,
Scotland
Graham.
as well. So I have some affinity.
Okay, right. I'm 66. I've been an atheist for 50 years plus. I don't get much of a chance here in Ireland to engage with theists. It's not as big an issue, religion, here in Ireland as it is for you guys over there. I guess Twitter, or X as it's now called, is where I get the chance to come across theists making assertions and claims, etc. And I know that it's pointless trying to change the mind of the likes of Ken Ham, Kent Hovind, etc. But
Sure.
you're common or garden theist. I try to use the Socratic Method, let's say, to draw them into a conversation. And it actually worked for me once. We were having a good back and forth. I basically asked, what do you believe in and why? But 99.9% of the time, all I get back is I'm just
Just basically an argument back.
atheist. You just want it.
Yeah.
I just get like, y'all just want to sin kind of thing, you know?
Oh yeah. Right. Right. Of course.
I've heard
yes.
that one.
Yeah. God, I've heard that one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just hate God.
Sure. Absolutely, I do, yeah. The same way as I hate leprechauns and Bigfoot and all the rest.
I always
This is
just
my
say I
first
don't
time
hate God. I just
Parliament,
hate the people that follow him.
Absolutely.
Not all of them, but there's a lot of them.
The
So,
terrible amount of damage that religion causes and has caused. I mean, I grew up in a country here in Ireland which was basically a theocracy in all
right.
name, and I saw the atrocities carried out
Yeah, like
by
the laundries.
the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I guess I was lucky that sent me to school when I was 3. So I was a bit ahead of my peers education-wise. So I had a good grasp of Latin by the age of 12 or 13. And first thing I noticed, I was forced to go to Mass, was that it was in Latin. And I knew that at least 90% of the congregation didn't understand the words of Latin. So that was, I found that kind of suspicious. I won't go too much into my story. I read as many of the versions of the Bible as I could, and I found them all to be equally horrific. I was an atheist by the age of 15. So I don't get the chance to interact with theists here in Ireland because it's not a big thing here. I think it's just like being a Catholic is just a nominal kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But online, when I see atheists posting something which they claim is in the scriptures and it blatantly isn't, I call them up on that. I guess there are times when I'm a bit like when I first found the atheist community of Austin, Jeff D. back in the day. I'd be like, Jeff, you know.
I think it's important to have these conversations. right? I really do. So I appreciate that you're out there having them, because it does have an effect, even if it doesn't have an effect with the person that you're talking to. And if we can have these conversations, and we can have them in as a normal conversation where they don't get heated, we're not insulting each other, and we can show these theists that we're people just like they are, like you were saying, using the Socratic method and keeping the heat down. If we can do that and show them that we are people just like they are, we can start to normalize atheism a little bit more. And we won't get we won't get people saying things to us like, you just want to sin, or you just hate God, and that's why you're an atheist. People maybe someday will start understanding who and what we are. But we have to kind of normalize it too first. And I think that's a good way to do it, is to be out there having those conversations. Cross-examiner?
I agree with you totally.
I agree as well. I was going to chime in just real quick. Sorry.
Sure.
There's a bit of a delay, just so you know. But I agree with what Kelley said. And I think that the key one to answer your question that you asked the caller, which was, is it worth it? And that obviously is largely up to you, but the ones I find most worthwhile are the ones, as Kelley mentioned, where there's somewhat of an audience, which is where the internet has really allowed some of this to take place. The dilemma of the internet is, if you're just having bumper sticker saying back and forth posting meme discussion, that's not going to do much. What I found works the best is having some sort of forum where you can have an honest interlocutor work with you, and where I, if I'm doing it, am genuinely curious. I come at it from a point of curiosity. There are points of view I know I haven't heard. There are ways of living that I am unfamiliar with, and I would like to learn about this person to understand where they're coming from, because I don't think the vast majority of religious people are crazy or evil or mean. I think they are just like everybody else, born naked and afraid, trying to figure out what's going to happen, and more importantly, what's going to happen when they die. And they think that they have found an answer, and I would like to hear from them why. And if all they have is this inner belief of, hey, after I die, I'm going to go to a happy place if I'm a good person, and it ends there, I'm not that much worried about that point of view. I think that they do have an opportunity cost there, that if they spend too much time praying and going to church, that they've lost some time there, but I'm not too worried about them. The people that worry me more are, I understand what's going to happen, and the God that's going to take care of me afterwards wants me to do something in this life. And that's can run into, they want me to deny people their right to marry. They want me to not let other people control their own bodies. They want me to storm the Capitol on January 6th. Or back in the 80s during the Troubles in Ireland, they want me to bomb the other side, right? So it can really cause a lot of harm. And I'm very curious, intellectually curious, about where that line is and how people shift from one to one end of the spectrum to a more extreme end of the spectrum. Because if we can control the extremism through what you are trying to do, which is have honest dialogues with people, then we can sort of mitigate the damage that religion does, even if we don't eliminate a religion. Everybody has a right to their own religion. It's the extremism that causes the problem. So if you have an audience, you're not going to change the mind of the person you're talking to very often, but a person who's listening in, even if they're religious and shares the same views as the person you're talking to, is going to be more susceptible to open-minded thinking, because they're not on the spot. They're not the one that's being asked the tough questions. People who have these conversations tend to dig in their heels. And once you've stated an opinion, psychological studies show that you are much less likely as a human to retract your opinion. So when you're talking to somebody, they're going to sort of dig in, they're going to be resistant, they're going to try to find any sort of argument to win. Whereas a listener who might be the same exact type of person might go, wow, that atheist person just made a really good point. Maybe I should go reread the Bible, or maybe I should look at what we actually know happened, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my take on it. It's worthwhile if if I can have an honest conversation that's genuine, I have enough time to have a detailed conversation, and even if the person is not going to be as likely to change their mind, if there is some sort of audience, whether it's a text chat room or video discussion, that I think is where you get your best bang for your time.
And I want to just point out, because the crew just... Go ahead, Jerry. Go ahead. No, go ahead. We have a time delay. You're all the way over there in Ireland, so we're getting a little bit of a delay. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I'm totally on board 100% with everything you said. Absolutely. And yeah, what you have said has kind of uplifted my doubts about interacting. So I thank you for that. I see where you're coming from.
Just to make one more point. Yeah, just to make one more point, even those people that you don't think are ever going to change their mind, sometimes they do. And we've had a caller that's been calling in here into the ACA shows for years, Emmanuel, and he seems to be changing his mind at least a little bit. Even if he hasn't dropped his whole religious views, he's starting to have a more liberal view of what he does believe in. So it does happen that the people that you really don't think are going to come around at any point at all in the future sometimes do as well. So
yeah, and it can be, you starting the conversation on a non-religious front can sometimes work as well, because we're unfortunately in a world now where a lot of people you're going to interact with online are going to sort of deny some basic realities, right? We've got a lot of denialism. We've got a lot of political extremism these days. So I find taking a step back, if I see that we're going to jump into an argument, I say, you know, maybe this is the lawyer in me talking, but in the beginning of any law or the beginning of any contract, what do you do first? You define your terms. So why don't we just have a conversation on definition of terms so there's no confusion later on? What does it mean to be a Christian? Sure. What does it mean to have faith? What does evidence mean? Is the scientific method understandable? Is it a good, reliable truth to reality? You know, finding reality. Is that a good path to reality? Is faith better than that? You can have these sort of definitional conversations just to show I'm genuinely curious, because I might run into somebody who gives me something I've never heard of before, some argument or something like that. And even if I don't think I'm going to change my mind, maybe I will, or maybe they'll give me something else to go research, and then I will become better at understanding other people's views. So I think that starting off simple, you know, do we agree that A equals A? Do we agree that A cannot be B? Do we agree that you can't be A and B at the same time? Like, just those basic laws of logic sometimes is a great place to start. And then you can just say, okay, what's next? And let them take the lead. And just, as you said, you use the Socratic method, which is an excellent way of doing it. I'm just curious. I'm just asking questions. I'm not trying to set traps. I just want to understand. And if you let them talk and ask the questions, they will often moderate their own views. They will say, I believe everything's true. Oh, okay. Well, what about slavery? Well, no, I don't think that's true. Well, what about the women being property and sex slaves? Well, no, I don't believe that's true. And all of a sudden they start moderating, and they may say, I don't think that's in the Bible. And then you have a little sub conversation about, let's go look at this chapter. Let's look at that verse. So it can be a long-term thing, but if you just get people to agree that A equals A, you're off to a good start.
Excellent. I've been following the Emmanuel saga, and it's going very well. So that's great. And you have actually helped me quite a lot. Because all I want is honest conversations, and I'm not looking for gotchas or anything like that. You know,
exactly.
Just to find an honest interlocutor and go from there. And before I go, because I know you're busy, I listened to the preamble you were on about crystals and all this other stuff. I always say there's only one alternative medicine, and that's real medicine.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree. It's like I said in the beginning, it was one of the things that really got me back doing activism again, because I got so mad one day about a woman actually, she was trying to find out what crystal would be good for her daughter's diabetes. And there was something snapped inside of me when I saw that. She posted it on a rock collectors group on the internet, and I just, like I said, something snapped inside of me and said, I've got to start standing up more and saying something about this kind of thing. So, but Jerry, I really appreciate you calling in. You've been a delight to talk to, and I hope you call back again and keep in touch with us and tell us how it's going with your.
I want to thank you, the whole atheist community of Austin, for I found you way back in the day, like I said, and you've been a great help to me. So I really appreciate what you do under very, very difficult circumstances.
Thank you so much, Jerry.
Thank you very much for taking my call.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you for calling. Guys. Thank you so much.
Have a great one.
I hope I talk to you again in the future. Bye-bye, Jerry.
Well, he was a delight.
Absolutely. Bye-bye, lads. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, that was a delightful call, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I love hearing from people around the world and the troubles that they get into and the challenges they face. And I really appreciate him calling in, because I really do honestly believe that these honest conversations have a great way of bonding people. I have a lot of good friends of mine that are evangelical Christians, although a lot of them have said, hey, I can't call myself an evangelical anymore because the definition of that has changed over the last 5 years. But you can have really good, great relationships with people as long as you have honest conversations. And I myself, like many people, have been moderated to some degree by having those conversations, because when I first sort of realized, hey, I'm an atheist and there's these people trying to do things in the name of religion, I went through the quote unquote angry atheist phase where, these people are mean, these people are wrong, they're stupid, they're sheep, they're out to get me, all of those sorts of things. And it was only through watching everybody on the ACA having these conversations again and again, realizing, no, the vast majority of people really aren't. They have these sort of cloudy beliefs and they accept them. And some are curious enough to call in and chat with people like you, Kelley. And then I would listen to those conversations and realize I need to change how I'm thinking. Like when I first started really reading the Bible and stuff, I'm like, where is it? There's got to be a secret in here somewhere that reveals why so many people believe this. Like, what am I missing? Because it seems so obviously wrong to me. And I never found it. And it made me very upset that so many people were tricked or willingly fooled. And then when I watched the ACA, when I listened to all your shows, I realized people are people. They're busy. This is one aspect of their life. They're not out to get you. And they can be fooled themselves.
I'm taking all this praise from everybody, and I don't think I deserve it because I've only been here a little while. But you know what it has done is it makes me so glad to be a part of this group of people that do deserve that praise. So that's awesome. I'm really honored to be here. And I want to take a second out because I want to mention the brick fundraiser that we've been doing for a while. We're in the completing phase of it. It'll be done at the end of January, the phase 1. And we've been doing a featured brick every once in a while. And our featured brick this week comes from Weldon from Texas, who engraved "Born Innocent, Raised Baptist, Now Enlightened." That's a nice one. I like that.
That is great. I love it. I ended up getting a brick before I thought I needed to be witty, so I may have to get another brick. I'm not sure what I would say. I said on another show I might get a brick that says "This is not a brick," just to sort of be funny, but those bricks are awesome.
I bought mine live on the ACA on the ACA after show last week on AXP after show. So
nice.
Everybody get your bricks in there. You can still purchase yours at tiny.cc/ACA bricks. So don't be thick, buy your brick.
Yeah, and they go to help the library, the physical building that ACA has, especially during the pandemic. It needs a lot of maintenance, and this is a great way to put your name down for quite a long time and go. Eventually, I would love to come down and go on the back cruise or whatever and see if my brick's there.
Yeah, you should come down to Back Cruise. It's a lot of fun. And I believe that they were even posting updates to show what work has been done with the money that was made from the bricks. So you know it's
Great.
actually being used for that purpose. So that's awesome. I think that's actually incredible. So
Yeah.
and how about we go and take another call? What do you
Sure.
think?
Absolutely.
We have Johnny they made decision to drop. I'm kind of having a hard time to understanding this. Made the decision to drop identifiers, and thinks they could harm less productive conversation. So, let's see. Hi, Johnny. How you doing?
Hi. Good.
So, what do you got for us?
It's kind of a hard. Yeah, it's kind of a hard topic to wrap your head around. But basically, this year I've decided to give up like identifiers because I realized that it kind of puts me into a like a win-lose, yes-no kind of thing in conversation where it's like it's not just like atheism and theism, but so I usually share way too much with people, and then they have a very solid idea of who I am, and then that kind of like gets in the way of productive conversations with people I know or people I don't know.
Before we get too far into it, could you do me a favor and define what you mean by identifiers? What are you talking about there?
You jumped on it just before I did. Thanks.
Like atheist or he, him, any kind of thing that identifies you, or like how you self-identify. I don't really self-identify. I never really have, and I've noticed, and this year I've just decided to stop, using everybody else's identifiers. It's hard for me to, identify myself.
I think I get the idea.
You know what I mean?
I think I get the idea. Does it, and I don't want this to sound negative or anything, but I'm really curious, does it stifle conversation at times? Do you have a hard time communicating without the identifiers?
Oh, yeah. A little bit. It's like my first language has always been numbers. So language has always been difficult for me, whether I have identifiers or not. So this kind of just is for like my own mental health, basically. It's a way for me to kind of cleanse the palate a bit. And
I totally understand that. I have a son who is on the autism spectrum, and he has a little problem with language as well, just forming the thoughts and all of that sort of stuff. He's high functioning. So I totally understand that. I assume that it's going to make conversations take longer because what you're talking about with these identifiers, to me, I would think of as categories or labels, and you're worried about being pigeonholed. And when that hole forms and you're stuffed into it, it can feel very constraining, and that's not exactly what I mean, and all of that. So when somebody asks your opinion about something and you don't have time to explain, because I'm assuming you would need a lot of time rather than just saying, I'm an atheist, you need to say, well, I believe this, I don't believe this. And do you just avoid the conversation because you don't have enough time? Or how do you handle that?
Just one conversation at a time, like step by step.
And how often does it come up for you?
Like, well, it's coming up right now, so it's always.
Good answer. Good answer. I had another question.
I find
too.
a lot like. Okay.
No, go ahead. Please go ahead.
I was saying, like, I think coming from a large family or being around a lot of people, like, just listening to, like, several conversations at once, for me, a lot of other people get, I feel that, like, comforting in a way, because I usually have, like, I listen to a lot of, like, talk shows all at once and music, it's like jazz in my head, kind of, so it helps me focus to have a lot of that stuff around, but I you know what I mean?
I do, actually. My son I was talking about, The way other people will listen to music, the way, you leave music on in the background and you don't notice it at some point, he will put on shows that he likes to watch over and over again, like the 1970s Muppet Show. He will leave that on, playing on a TV while he's working on a puzzle or something. And that script that's going through his head, because he's heard it a lot of times, is relaxing the same way as if I would listen to jazz, which I do enjoy listening to, or something like that. And sometimes he will have two on at the same time. And early on, my wife and I were like, wait a second, is this healthy? Is this something we should encourage? And we talked to his therapist and his psychiatrist, and they're like, yeah, it's just like the radio. It's helping him deal with relaxing or whatever it may be. So I totally get where you're coming from. How does the abandonment of labels, categories, identifiers, whatever you may want to call it, how does that help you? What does it do for you?
It allows me to communicate better with people without falling into the traps of normal conversation. Like if you go for an interview, that whole typical, like you're super confident at first, and by the time you get to the tail end of it, you're like, what the fuck did I say? You know what I mean? Like it helps me not get to that tail end, How
do people react when they interact with you and you are avoiding the use of these categories or identifiers?
Most people don't really seem to notice because everybody's kind of in their own world. I mean, only my close friends and family kind of know what I'm going through, so it's not really. I don't know exactly how noticeable it is because I'm not in other people's heads, but I haven't seemed to like run into any major issues. But then again, this is still in January, so it's not like I have a ton of research evidence on it.
So
it's been helping me a lot.
What was your actual motivation? Was it so that people wouldn't have these prejudices about the label automatically? Was that the idea?
Well, it's kind of like a mix of like external and external pressures. Like I've always been colorblind. I think I'm on a couple different spectrums, but like I've always been colorblind in the past. I don't know, just a couple months I've been losing the rest of my sight. So that is probably, there's like one of the triggers. There's a bunch, but that's probably the easiest to explain to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And how about bringing it back to the topic we started with, atheism versus theism? Does that come into play at all? Do you get involved in those sorts of discussions? And if so, how do you handle them?
It's tricky, especially because when you see like the kind of work I do with like maintenance and I'm like an artist and musician and a little bit of everything, but one of the things I've done is a maintenance supervisor, for instance. So it's tricky because when you start learning people and their motives, and then you start seeing the connections. Because here in Maryland, for instance, like we have like the smallest like landmass, but we are like separated more than any other state. We have like so many districts, and you have like $100 million condos across the street from like boarded up homes. And it's just, that creates an environment of chaos. You know what I mean? And that's where I work all day. So I have to kind of like be able to go into these environments and survive. So I can't really just prejudge anybody. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I have a little bit, yeah.
And I think I know what you're talking about. I did detect, I am also in Maryland, and I did detect a little bit of that Baltimore-ish accent with the homes and the Huns and all of that. So way to go. I hope you're going to enjoy some crabs at some point when it gets a little warmer. But I have, in fact, worked in those environments as well. I went to law school, University of Maryland, which is up in Baltimore. And as a clinic, we defended people who had no money as students. And you have to go in and not judge people, and you hope you go in with an open mind, and you want them to be represented and have an attorney that understands them. So you don't want to go in using labels per se. However, without some shortcuts and labels, it makes conversations really long. So I bet it's a constant challenge. I don't know about you, Kelley. Did you have any other sort of questions?
When you said that, I was just thinking, man, I mean, legal conversations would have to be a big challenge without using labels. That would be really tough. And I'm just kind of soaking this one in because it's a new one on me, and I find it kind of interesting. So, yeah, like I said, I think the being able to get rid of some of the prejudices that come with it, like a lot of people hear the word atheism and they jump right to these, like we had with talking to Jerry, you hate God, you just want to sin, that just because you said you were an atheist,
Right.
and I think getting rid of
even simpler than that, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Even simpler than that, where they're like, oh, so you insist that God doesn't exist. Well, no, there's some subtlety there. And if I just leave it as atheist, then then I leave it to them to define me rather than to me say, well, here's what I actually believe. And I've had that real time happen where you're talking to somebody, they bring it up and say, well, actually, you have a choice there during the conversation. I either lead with, I'm actually an atheist, and let them ask questions, or you start by saying, well, here's what I believe. And oftentimes I'll say, well, I'm not convinced that a God exists. I'm open to evidence. And if any is presented that's convincing, I will certainly change my mind. I just haven't been presented with any evidence that any of these gods I've been told about are actually real. And then I've had somebody literally say, oh, so you're not an atheist. So if you start from just tell you what I am or what I believe, you can end up with their dictionary is totally different than the next person's dictionary. So I think it's a luxury of time to be able to have that. You have to have these one-on-one conversations. You can't just get on, let's say, up in front of a class or meet somebody and just say, okay, let me tell you 20 minutes of what I believe. So sometimes as a shortcut, you'd have to use those labels and say, well, if I had to define myself, I'm an atheist, but if you got time, I'll tell you more about it.
Yeah,
I can see that.
So,
yeah.
Well, I really want to thank you for calling, Johnny.
Absolutely.
Because it was it was really an interesting call. It's like I said, it's a new one on me, and it's going to give me a lot to think about over the next couple of days. So I appreciate it. So and call us back. Tell us how it's been going with you and how things are working out with this whole new this thing without using identifiers, because I'm real curious. I want to know. So keep in touch with me, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny. Appreciate it.
I'm a member now, so yep.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. Well, that was a really interesting call.
It is, it's interesting. I found it ironic that at the beginning, because really what we're talking about is language and categories and things like that, that he started off by saying, I don't use identifiers anymore. And we had to do what? We had to say, well, could you define identifiers? So it's kind of a problematic, it might end up to a circular point like all language does, but even that conversation needed some definition. So
Right. We had to identify the identifiers, right?
Right.
And that's, well, he did say it was a hard thing to talk about.
It is.
So
It is.
of the call. So
yep.
It's not a hard thing to talk about, though. If you want to listen to all of the content from the ACA in a podcast form, you can go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts, and you can get all the latest ACA shows. This one, AXP, Talk Heathen, the Nonprofits, the flagship show of the ACA. Nobody said that for a while. How come
Nobody has.
That? I know. How come that got dropped?
I don't know.
But go there and check them all out in podcast form, because they are there for your amusement.
Can I just call out your professional level segue there from, it's not hard to talk about. That was chef's kiss right there.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Appreciate that. And we've got a bunch of calls here. So
we also have a super chat. I don't know if we want
we do have a super
one.
chat. I saw that. Thank you for reminding me. I was going to get to that.
Some strange guy gave us money.
Some guy named Blind Limey, who's been a member for 6 months, gave us $5.
Hi, Blind Limey. Good to hear from you.
And it says, oh, that we now had here Bhutan of those men on Twitter that prattle on flat earth today, which is a quote from William Shakespeare, probably.
He is a very funny guy. I've had the privilege of talking to Blind Limey many times, and always a delight. So thank you very much for the donation. I look forward to hearing from you again.
He likes to hang out with us on the after shows on Discord too. So he might even be there this evening. So if you're not doing anything after the show, join us there for that. And you might be able to talk to Jamie, the Blind Limey.
Yep.
Okay. I have got a call from Dan, him in Canada. And I really want to talk to him because he thinks he's seen ghosts and he wants to know how to collect credible evidence.
Okay.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for taking my call, guys.
Well, thanks for calling. So what type of evidence do you think are you looking for? What?
Well,
I know I've seen.
Second.
Sure. Go ahead.
So I am not sure what I've seen, but I've been assured that I'm going to be spending time with a family member in a house that is haunted.
Okay.
And
the house is haunted, not the family member, just to clarify.
Well, I don't really know how it works. So
that's a good question. Okay, all right. I was trying to joke, but you're right. We could be the family members that are haunted.
But yeah, I don't know exactly what it is I've seen, and I'm being told a claim of haunting. So how do I go about doing something non-wooey?
Well, that's a good question because we don't really have any tests to test things that are supernatural at this point. It's a really tough thing. The only thing we can do is test the interactions they have with the physical world. And because you can't predict what's going to happen from the supernatural, it's hard to be able to measure those interactions because you don't know when they're going to happen. So it's kind of it's a really kind of tough paradox for science, is that we really can't design a test at this point that isn't a non-wooey test to test for something that is not part of the natural world. Does that make any sense? I know it kind of didn't, but it does if you think about it.
So it's a catch-22 of how do I collect evidence of a thing that I can't explain.
Right.
In the
and
first
how do you,
place, what?
The problem is designing the experiment and then being able to replicate that experiment again. And one of the big problems is that even though you might be able to replicate that experiment again, somebody is not going to be able to replicate that in another environment on the other side of the world. And that's one of the things that we base science on, is the ability to do that. Is that if I do an experiment here, somebody in, say, Germany can do the exact same experiment and get the same exact results. And we can't do that with this.
Or even the same person coming to the haunted house, let's say there was only one haunted house on the planet, we would want independent people to come in and do the same thing. So even if there was just one location where this phenomena existed, you do want a third party, independent researchers to be able to come and explore it as well. So it is a real dilemma. I usually start with observations, right? Let's say what can we observe? What have we observed? And we've got 5 senses that we, did you smell stuff? Did you see stuff? Did you hear stuff? Did you feel stuff? And you can start with that, but all that does is give you an experience. And then the human wants to explain the experience, because if it's not normal, it's unusual, all of a sudden we're like, I need an explanation. And the first thought in your head should be, like, I hope it is in mine, I don't know what I experienced, which it sounds like that's where you are. I experienced something, I don't know what it is. And that's a very healthy place to be, because saying you know something when you don't is, there lies madness. That's a real problem. So saying I don't know is a great starting position. And that's where science starts. I don't know. Now, how can I go figure out? So do you mind, real briefly talking about the nature? Like, did you see things? Did you feel things, et cetera? Have you attempted to see it again? That's usually the next step is I had this experience. Let me try to reproduce it. If I can reproduce it on demand, now we've got something where I might be able to pull third-party observers in and experience it as well, and then continue to investigate. So do you mind relaying, if you can, real briefly, what you experienced?
Yeah. I saw a figure out of the corner of my eye, and when I went to look at what I thought I saw, I didn't see anybody there. But I was told that there are ghosts in this place, so
This is
I
going to
mean-
sound like a silly question, but do you have long hair?
no.
No, okay, cool. Like I said, it's
Actually,
going
I
to sound like a silly question because back when and I'm going to explain why I asked that, because back when I was immersed in woo, I used to think I saw spirits and ghosts out of the corner of my eye too, and it just turned out to be bits of my hair and my peripheral vision. That's why I asked that. So and I was brave enough to explain how stupid I was, and so I could explain what was apparently a stupid question. So thanks, Dan.
I do have a question for Dan. Let's take it one step at a time, right? You saw something, and then you said, I was told X. I'm going to put on my lawyer hat a little bit, because the rules of evidence are the rules of evidence for a reason, like for court. Like, could you have said that in court? No, you couldn't have said that. Why? Because I don't know who said it. And if you did, it might still be hearsay. So now all of a sudden, we need to know who said what and why I should listen to them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that, I think the rules of evidence teach people to be very skeptical, because they've been developed over the last 800 years based on human experience on what sort of testimony is reliable and what needs more before it can be admissible. So when your second sentence was, I was told, can you tell us who told you and what their relationship is to the location where you had this experience? I.e., was it their house? Was it a hotel, etc.?
It was the homeowner of a house.
Okay. So that adds more information. Now we know that they have some sort of interest in the property, right? Whether it's to create a story or just to get rid of the ghost or whatever they're trying to do, they've got some sort of relationship to the property, and now we can talk about their motive for believing that. I'm assuming that they may have told you stories about their experiences that were similar. Is that correct?
Yes, they did.
Okay. So
I've
now
been
you're stuck
told
with
of frequent
Go ahead,
interactions from them.
Okay. And now you're stuck with saying, okay, where do I go with this? Do I laugh it off and just say, oh, that's crazy Bob, he thinks he's got ghosts? Or, wow, I had a similar experience. Were you told about these ghosts before you had this experience?
Most likely.
Okay.
Not 100% sure.
Okay. So if I were being open-minded, I would be aware of the human tendency to the power of suggestion, so to speak. If I was told about a haunted house, I'm more likely to interpret things that are a little unusual. The door opens suddenly, I hear a bang, whatever it may be. I'm more likely to attribute that to something if nobody had ever told me that this house was haunted. I'm not saying that's what happened. I would you asked how to research this. I would keep that in mind as well. And then if the homeowner's amenable, I would start talking to them about reproducing this experience. And I'm guessing that we will go to where Kelley was, which is, oh, you can't do it on demand. It just kind of happens. And that's where you sort of have to throw up your hands and be like, okay, there's a million things it could be. One of them might be some sort of supernatural thing, but until we have any more information, everything else by definition is more likely than a supernatural.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not sure how.
Functionally aware of that, but
I'm not sure how you can design that experiment either. Like the prayer experiment, which was one where they kind of experimented on something that was like that, but they were measuring the effect that it had in the physical world. Did the person actually get better from the prayer, or did they get worse? So we had some kind of a guideline to look at, and I'm not sure what we can do with your problem to make that experiment happen. And that's the problem. So I'm not sure that we can actually design a good experiment at this point in time. I'm not saying that science could never do it, but at this point in time, I'm not sure that we can do that.
Another
And
good
that's
way
why
to, sorry, go ahead, Kelley.
I was about to say that's why you see all these ghost hunters with all their weird scientific equipment and stuff, and I don't know what they're doing really. They're just going out there and having fun or something. And I have known a couple of ghost hunters that did that stuff, and they certainly had fun doing what they were doing, but I don't know what they were figuring out.
It's like going fishing, right? You don't care if you catch any fish, you're just hanging out with your friends.
Yeah,
I was
right.
literally going to actually mention right then ghost hunting shows, because in the history of dozens of ghost hunting shows going to known quote unquote haunted houses, we've never had anybody come back and say, I got it. Here's the evidence. Where's my Nobel Prize for proving the supernatural? And they've got cameras everywhere. They've got recordings everywhere. And they typically will have to slow things down and pick up vibrations in the air. And they try to make it sound like something else. So you could do some ghost hunting, set up cameras everywhere, set up recordings everywhere. And if you can have a reliable, reproducible phenomenon, then you've got a phenomenon. Hey, there's this light appears on this camera. The air vibrates and I'm hearing it in this microphone. What's the explanation? Well, I still don't know that. That's what experiments are for. That's what Kelley's talking about. I can capture an image. I can capture sound. I can capture a smell, maybe even with some devices. But when we go to explain the cause, that's a problem. And if it's not reliably reproducible, then you're going to start playing games with the owner of the house. It's sort of like the invisible pink unicorn. Oh, well, I'm going to go look at the pink unicorn. Oh, he's invisible. Oh, well, then I'll just measure the volume of air in the room. Oh, well, the air goes right through the unicorn. And you just excuse after excuse after excuse until there's nothing to measure. You can keep coming up with excuses as either the owner of the house or just not even maliciously. He just may be interested or have concluded it's a ghost, and then he will keep making, or he or she will keep making excuses. I agree with Kelley. You can observe, but only once you can collect reliable observations can you start getting interest with people to say, maybe there's something here to investigate. But the first task is capture some observations. And if you can't, then you're sort of left with every other failed ghost hunter show on the planet.
You can try to capture some videos. Of course, a lot of people aren't going to believe them. My son is currently working at a building that's haunted, supposedly, and I just watched a couple of videos from that happened with. It was one photograph and one video, and the photograph was really nothing. It was nothing, but the video was kind of interesting because not only did a door fly open, but you could actually see the handle turn on the door before it flies open, and it was an empty closet behind the door, so you can actually see that on the video too. So that was kind of interesting, but I don't know how we would prove what the cause of that was just from watching that video. But getting that video was at least a start, right? We can at least, we're at least showing that there's some effect happening, even if a lot of the people who watch that video aren't going to believe that it was real anyway. They're going to think it was faked in some way. So, but that's a start. Like, as cross-examiner said, observing it is a start, and you've got to keep, unless you keep notes, you're just screwing around. It's not science.
Right.
You got to keep notes, right?
Write it down.
So that's the big thing. And that's about the best advice I can give you at this point.
Is there a particular relationship with you and the homeowner? I'm kind of curious about that aspect. Does this experience make it uncomfortable to interact with the homeowner? Are they pushing this belief, or where is that relationship sitting?
Just being purposely vague, but it's a family member. I have a good relationship with them. Okay. The whole ghost thing came up in conversation.
Understood. Yeah. So you have an added possible, you tell me if there's discomfort when this topic comes up, maybe? Are you uncomfortable when they discuss it?
No.
Okay.
I'm
all right.
Curious.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. All right. Wonderful. So you don't have any negative effects there. There's no like, oh, Aunt May keeps talking about her haunted house at the Thanksgiving table, which is, can really affect your life. So if it's not really affecting you negatively, then I would continue down your path of like, okay, I'm curious. I've had this experience. I can't explain it. Maybe I can try to experience it some more and capture those observations in some way. If the homeowner is willing and interested, they might go along with it and let you start experimenting not experimenting, but start capturing data, and then you can start to form an experiment. And you may learn, oh, this happens when this particular warning alarm goes off in the AC unit and it reflects off of that mirror over there and it creates a little blink in your eye. Or it may be a ghost, but the only way you can find out is start gathering data.
Yeah. At least try to, if we can at least figure out what the physical effect is, then maybe we can start figuring out why that effect is happening. So, but we've got to document that the effect is happening to begin with. So, but I'm really curious. I mean, I'd love to hear about the journey of it. So, I mean, I hope you call back and let us know.
Well, you'll be the first to know once I got something on video. But
Awesome.
yeah, I will be spending some time with this family member, so I'm looking forward to the unknown.
Absolutely.
When you get that video, send it to me at TV at atheist-community.org. I'd love to see it. Yep, and look, there's the email address right there below us right now. It's perfect.
Yeah.
All right. I got another call, so I'm going to let you go, Dan. It was really great to hear from you. I hope that you figure something out. And like I said, I'd love to hear from you again. I hope you show us that video you get. I'd love to see it. I was intrigued by the one I just saw. So
absolutely. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. I just from getting back to the rules of evidence type of thing, it's fascinating. I do recommend people study the rules of evidence because it really does help with sort of skepticism. I was sitting here thinking, okay, you get the video. Now you have an authentication problem, right? You have, where did this video come from? Who's been handling it? How was it recorded? Who's had it between the production and now? Who's manipulated it, et cetera? Was it created by AI? All of those things. And people are sort of unaware that you have all of those issues when you try to introduce evidence at court. So the bar can be very high depending on what type of trial you're at, but it's high for a reason. We think it's unfair to introduce documents that just magically appeared in a document or recordings or whatever, and nobody knows where they came from. So while it would be very interesting seeing that recording, Dan should know he's going to have a high hurdle to convincing anybody that what we're seeing represents something from the supernatural and not computer graphics, AI, a phenomenon of a lens, a house that has some weird reflection, etc.
Flying.
A fly, yeah.
So but I'm hoping that he gets back to us though. Have you ever been sitting around and you thought to yourself, boy, I'm really bored and I would really like to listen to something maybe entertaining, something a little bit controversial, and you think to yourself, I love the ACA content. That's entertaining and controversial.
But Kelley, they're only on for like an hour a week, right?
Well, yeah, a little bit more than that, but not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay.
Not anymore. We have now got you covered 24/7 with not one, but 2 live streams.
I'm interested.
You should be. AXP TV delivers a constant stream of shows, clips, specials from the over 20, it says 26 seasons here. It's 27 seasons of the Atheist Experience. And now Heathen TV, 2 channels, provides you with clips from Talk Heathen. So you can watch or you can just simply listen to your favorite hosts. Discover hosts you've never seen before because there's a whole bunch of them from the past that are really good. Visit tiny.cc/AXPTV or tiny.cc/HeathenTV to join in the fun. And it's a lot of fun. And I'll tell you, I kind of hang out in the chat room at AXPTV a lot. And there's a really good group of people there. So not only do you get to watch cool content, which you can hang out and talk to some really cool people as well.
Absolutely. And I've actually watched that stream and seen, like, been reminded of some of the hosts from the past and how good they were as well. Tracy Harris was one of my favorites. Jen and Russell and Don and all of those old people were the people that were on the air. Matt Dillahunty, of course, they were all on the air when I was going through that phase of, I've never really been religious, but have you seen what people are trying to do? Can you believe all? And I would watch this nonstop, and going back and watching, it's amazing how much they knew back then, because we have the benefit of mountains of information that has piled up on the internet, arguments, videos of debates, and all of that. Back then, they're running the show as a public access in Texas, and we're happening to put it up online, and it was first time hearing, and they were reasoning through this on the air, and it was very, very impressive. And the ACA has had a long lineage of very, very solid hosts that have been able to continue in that strain. So it's really fun to go watch those streams and see what sort of comes up on the ACA jukebox.
Martin Wagner too. Nobody ever mentions.
Oh yeah, Martin Wagner was
Martin's
great.
Like he's like my favorite old host, man. I love
He was
Martin.
quick,
He was
very quick. They were all quick, but he was really good.
And we have got another call. How about, you want to take it?
Sure.
All right, let's do it then. It's Nicholas, he, him. He's in America, and it says God and Christ the Savior. So, oh, did I here? I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button by accident.
That's because you're afraid to let God and Christ the Savior speak on this show.
There you go.
Where are you hiding
Nicholas.
from?
Hi, Nicholas. How are you? Sorry about that.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. What you got for us?
I think Nicholas is falling asleep on us.
Hello?
Hello, you
Can
there,
hear
Nicholas?
you. Would you
Yeah,
like
we can hear
Uh,
to
you.
ask a question or say something?
This is the name. I'm just here to talk about Christ.
Well, what do you want to tell us?
That Christ is God.
Well, we've had a lot of people tell us that, but how do we know for sure? Hello,
How do we
Nicholas?
know that Christ is God? Hello?
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
delayed.
How do we know? I mean, a lot of people make the claim. A lot of people say that Allah is God. A lot of people claim that the Hindu gods are real. A lot of people still claim that Ahura Mazda is real. How do we know that Jesus and Jesus Christ and Yahweh, the God Yahweh, are the true gods? How do we know that? Are you still there? Do you want to talk to us, or did you just call in just to say that one thing?
I'm here. I really don't know how to start this conversation. I'm trying.
Well, you could start by answering the question: Why do you believe that Christ is God?
I had this moment whenever I was little, with me and my brother, and whenever I don't remember exactly how old I was, but my stomach was hurting to the point where I was literally crying. Like I was in tears. And I told my mom. I also told my brother. But I remember my brother pulling me aside to his room, and we had prayed. And my brother's also a believer in Christ. But at the time, I was a little kid. I didn't read the Bible or anything. I knew my brother believed in Christ, or he believed in God. He told me to pray with him, and he prayed over my stomach. Whenever he finished the prayer, or before we had even prayed or anything, he told me to believe and to listen to what he was saying. We to listen to the prayer. We trust in the prayer. We trust in God.
So you had a
So whenever
personal
we finish
experience
prayer-
when you had a personal experience when you were young. You had a really bad tummy ache, and you prayed with your brother, and your tummy ache was healed. So that to you was enough evidence for you to believe that God was real. Is that correct?
Well, that was my first experience with God ever. Not just that moment.
But was that enough to convince you to start believing in God?
Yeah, to believe that there was a God, yeah. But at that moment, it was just the first moment of when I knew that there was a higher being out there. Like, I believed in God after that point. But I didn't follow God yet. I was just a kid.
So I have a question for you, Nicholas, a hypothetical. If you're a kid, let's imagine you're a kid. I don't know how old you were at the time, but let's say you were out playing and you picked up a stick, right? And like kids do, we're walking around. I don't have anything to do. It's a summer day, and I'm walking along, and I'm tapping things with the stick. Right? I tap the sidewalk as I walk, I tap a tree, and then I tap a fence in front of a house. And the minute I tap that fence, the house blows up. Did your tapping cause that house to blow up?
Say that one more time.
If a kid walks up to a fence and taps it with a stick and then the house blows up, is it reasonable for that kid to say, wow, I just made that my tapping on the fence caused the house to explode? Is that a reasonable conclusion?
No.
So I would propose to you that praying and getting better is the same as you tapping on a fence and the house blowing up. They can be utterly unrelated, but because one happened right after the other, you're attributing the getting better to the prayer. And furthermore, you're bringing in all of this stuff that people have told you, all of this rumor and hearsay, because you didn't pray to any God. You knew that they were Christian. You knew in Christ, they was brother in Christ and all that sort of stuff. One may ask if you were growing up in the Middle East and you had a tummy ache and somebody told you to pray to Allah and it got better, would you not also believe in Allah? So you've got a combination of what we call post hoc ergo propter hoc, after a thing, therefore because of a thing, a causality problem, right? After I pray, I got better, therefore the pray caused me getting better. Humans make that mistake all the time. So that's my first question. And the second, you just happen to be praying to a particular God, and so you're crediting that one because what do you know? Your family also believed in that God and told you about that God before praying. So I think those are some of the reasons why I would not be convinced personally based on that one experience. Or even if I prayed 10 times and my tummy ache always got better after I prayed, there is probably at least two explanations, right? Either God's doing this, or the act of slowing down, calming down, breathing, praying in and of itself creates a physiological response that helps settle my upset stomach. That's another possible explanation amongst many. So I think you probably want to come back and come with a little bit more reason to believe before you become convinced of something so important.
Okay, I know you said you had some other experiences. What's some of the other experiences you've had?
Back to the thing about the tapping on the fence and all that. The tapping on the fence and the house blowing up could be a huge coincidence.
That's
the point, right? That's right. There are 20 different explanations. Just a second. There's 20 different explanations at least as to why the house might have blown up. It could be a gas leak. It could have been a bomb. It could have been whatever. It's all 1,000,000,000% more likely that those are the proper explanation rather than a kid tapping on the fence causes the house to blow up. You have to deal in probabilities. What are the probabilities that a magical, mystical, celestial being took a moment to cure your tummy ache, rather than your tummy ache went away for whatever other reasons tummy aches go away.
It could also have been a placebo effect.
Okay, wait. Beforehand, did the kid, whenever he tapped the fence, did he say to himself, this house is going to blow up?
I think you're missing the point.
Yes, I think you're totally missing the point. Cross-examiner told you that to explain that you having your tummy ache cured at the same time as the prayer is just like the kid tapping on the fence and the house exploding. It doesn't mean because you had the prayer that the tummy ache went away, because it happened at the same time. That was what the purpose of that story was.
Beforehand, before anything, my brother saw me crying, and I told him that my stomach was hurting. And then
we've heard the story, but
we understand.
As soon as the prayer is finished. But you're talking about with the tapping on the fence.
Let me ask you that. Let's ask you that. Let me ask you that then. Let's change it to your particular hypothetical. A friend of the kid says, if you go tap on that fence, God is going to make that house blow up. And the kid goes, taps on the fence, and the house blows up. Are you convinced that there's a God now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the problem. There are many, many better explanations in the real world as to why that house would blow up. The least of which is some kid planted a bomb in it, right? Who knows what it is, but there are physical, real explanations that are almost infinitely more probable than a magical celestial dictator decided to intervene at that particular moment out of 1 trillion interactions per second on this planet. So the fact that you're saying, as long as somebody says something's going to happen when I do a thing, and they're going to attribute that cause to God, then if that thing happens, I'm going to believe it. That's called gullibility. You want to check that in yourself. I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying it as something we've all gone through and processed in our lives as to the post hoc ergo propter hoc, the causality error, is a form of sort of gullibility of I'm willing to believe this based on insufficient evidence. You can be tricked either accidentally or on purpose. People can try to fool you. People can try to frame you. There's all sorts of human explanations for all of these things. With the tummy ache, kids get tummy aches, kids go away. When kids calm down, they don't have a tummy ache anymore. I'm a parent. I've seen that a million times. So I'm not particularly impressed, and I'm not trying to be hostile here, but it sounds like this is the first time maybe you've even addressed this as a particular objection, and it's the very first objection anybody should raise. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Kelley?
Okay, but you said...
I'm worried that this might have also been something like a placebo effect too, where he thought that the prayer might make him better, so he went along with that. And we're talking about you were very young at the time this happened, were you not? I mean, your mind is really gullible and open to suggestion when you're young, and this could just well have been a power of suggestion thing where your brother told you were going to get better if you prayed, and you got better.
And these are all examples, to clarify, Nicholas, before you respond. I do want to give you a chance to respond, but I don't want to get hung up on the details. The point here is we know and observe the physical world, and we know that there's all sorts of things that happen naturally. Cancer goes into remission naturally. People have tummy aches because they're stressed. People lose their tummy aches because they calm down. There's all sorts of reasons. So I know this is probably just one of many examples, but I would hope that you can at least recognize that maybe that was a mistaken attribution of causation there. That you made a mistake when you were young. People told you a thing, it happened, and you're like, I believed them. Now, that's kind of a fault of the people who told you, but it's also something that's natural. So can you agree that perhaps that in that one instance, it wasn't God? Maybe it was a natural event?
Okay, so back to the thing about the
I asked a question. I'm sorry, but I asked you a question. Can you at least agree that there's a chance that was not caused by God, that God didn't cure your tummy ache that day? Can you agree to at least that?
Okay, but I believe that was God. That's when
Can you
Hey,
agree
back to
that
the
there's
thing
a
about the
chance
test.
that it wasn't? That's the question. Can you agree that there's
But I
some
don't believe that
chance?
it was. I don't believe
Okay,
that
so
there
you can't
wasn't. I don't
agree to
believe
that?
that it
Am I
wasn't.
understanding you
agree.
correctly? Okay, well that tells me a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very
Okay,
much,
but back
Nicholas.
to the thing about the
We are running out of time,
I didn't
unfortunately. I wish you had called earlier in the show. But call back next week. Call a little bit earlier. We can talk to you a little bit longer because we're just running out of time today. But I do appreciate you calling, and I do look forward to having you call back and talk about this some more.
Absolutely.
And that is just wrapping it up pretty much for us.
I think we have one more super chat at least.
We do have another super chat I saw. I wanted to do that. I had something else I wanted to say too, but here,
Okay.
let's do that super chat first. Where did it go? There it is. Jerry O'Connor, who was our first caller, sent 10 euros. I think those are euros. I'm not sure. It's some kind of funny money.
Yep.
He says, "Thank you for taking my call, guys. You definitely helped me, and I really appreciate it." Jerry, thank you. You have no idea how much that means to me. And it goes to illustrate that these conversations do have an effect. So thank you so much, Jerry, for calling in, and thanks for supporting the show. I appreciate it.
Can I also thank Jerry and take a brief moment to have an Irish moment for him?
Sure.
So, Jerry, thank you very much. When I think of Ireland, I've been on a kick of watching the show Derry Girls. If anybody hasn't seen it, you should watch it. It's Derry, as in County Derry in Ireland. It's about 4 schoolgirls who are growing up during the Troubles during the 80s when bombs were going off and all of that, a lot of religious strife. There is an episode in there where they are pressed for time. They're going to take exams and they go to pray, and they realize that they're praying in front of a statue of Mary, and the statue of Mary is crying. It goes exactly to what we were just talking about with the last caller, Nicholas. The cause of that, they all assume initially, is God, is showing them a sign. But in the end, you learn the real cause, which of course was a very absurd human interaction in the real world. And I highly recommend people watch that show. It's a delight. If you're like me, you may want to turn on the subtitles to begin with, because they're very, very thick accents.
Cool. I'll have to check that out. And I want to thank the crew. I mentioned them before. Let's get the crew cam up. Look at those guys. They are the real heroes here. They're the people who do the real work and make this the show that it is, the awesome show it is. So give them a big round of applause at your home. We can hear you all around the world clapping for them. Thanks a lot. And I also want to thank our backup host that was here today, Infidel64. You've seen him on Nonprofits. You probably don't want to see much more of him, but he's here anyway. him and I have a friendly rivalry going. So, but thanks a lot, Infidel, for being here. We appreciate you all. And I want to thank you for being here, Cross Examiner. You are awesome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh man, I love working with you. I would do this every week with you if I could.
Same.
I really would. Remember, the prompt for next week is, what was the real purpose of Stonehenge? Wrong answers only. Before we go, I want you to mention how we can find you again.
I'm at thecrossexaminer.net.
That's easy enough.
Yep.
And stick around, because we are going to go hang out in the atheist community of Discord for the after show. And it's always a lot of fun. I hope you join us there. And that is about it. That's our show for tonight. And next week, we will be back with another awesome show. And remember, always keep wanting the truth.
Watch the non-profits and join the hosts in the live chat. visit tiny.cc/ytnp.